everyone, it's Pete here from the Pain Toolkit, and we're doing another interview. Guess what? Oh, I've got Kjartan here from all the way in Norway. Kjartan, how are you this evening?
Thank you very much. I'm fine, thanks, and thanks for inviting me to this discussion.
It's great. I know I'll be telling the viewers in a minute what we're going to be discussing, but more importantly, I want to know about the Northern Lights. I mean, what's kicking off there, man? Can you see many Northern Lights at the moment?
Yeah, right now, actually, it's. I'll show you the outside of. It's really. We have usually in Bergen, it's known for its rain.
Yeah.
But we've had a cracking summer, and the Northern Lights is usually a bit further north than just here in Bergen. But if you come, I'll let you know how to.
Come to your area to see the Northern Lights is definitely on my bucket list, my to-do list. So watch your space.
Bring your motorcycle and.
Oh man, I look at the roads. I have I'm going off tact here, but there's a guy here in the UK called Henry Cole, and he does. He's made some video about world motorcycle rides. And I know he rode around Norway and around Scandinavia. And man, you know, the roads and the scenery, it was amazing. Yeah. So yeah, something to do list. Listen, we've been connected on social media for some time now. And what's prompted this to do this interview with you this evening is because I think it's something, I think you posted it a few weeks ago, and it was posted, the title of it was An Open Letter to My Patient's Previous Therapist. And in short, when I upload this video, I'll actually include the link to the article. But when I read this, it took me back many years but in a nutshell, it's where this therapist is writing to another therapist, and where the past therapist seemed to be limiting what this person could do. Yeah. And we had a little bit of a conversation on there, and hence why we got this interview cracking on tonight. But just to get things rolling, can you introduce yourself to the viewers, who you are, what you do? Yeah. Thanks. Perhaps you can be the Norwegian tourist guide. But tell us what you do up there, Kjartan.
So I'm a physiotherapist living in Bergen at the moment in Norway. I actually trained in Newcastle as a physio. So I went abroad and did my bachelor there, came back to Norway, and I knew I was wanted to do more specialization in musculoskeletal physiotherapy. So one of the areas, one of the places I looked to was Australia. So that's how I ended up in Perth to do my master's. And that's where I got to know a guy with a curly hair called Peter O'Sullivan. So that's how I got to know him quite well. This was back in 1999. And a few years later, I went back to Norway, and he started to come to Norway to do some teaching. And I went to his first course in Norway. I reintroduced myself. We connected even more. And that was the sort of beginning of our research together. And then he came to Norway in 2006 and stayed here for 6 months. And that's where we started to look into cognitive functional therapy and the research and the RCT that we've done together and published. And since then, I've been a part of the PainEd group and that research collaboration with Peter and Kieran and Wim Blankets and many, many more, Mary O'Keefe and JP Canero and Casper Ussing and a whole range of researchers now. And I think the letter you were referring to was a letter by Sarah Haig, which is in Entropy in Chicago, together with Sandy Hilton.
Yeah.
And I think it's a letter that hits home well, because a lot of the times you hear these heartbreaking stories of all the things that, all the no's that the patient has been given. You shouldn't be doing this, and this is wrong with you, and all. And I think I've been in this business now for over 20 years, 25 years almost. And it's always been a big part of cognitive functional therapy, is addressing the beliefs of the patients. And there's another quote which I think is great with that. It says that every therapist the patient has seen before you is a potential yellow flag, in a sense that you actually have to make sure that whatever has been told to what degree is it ingrained in the patient. And that's why I think that particular letter that Sarah put out there is a letter that a lot of therapists recognizes, because they'll think, why on earth did somebody tell you all these things? And why have you been given so many? It's like you've been given a plan on how to fail rather than giving a plan on how to succeed. And that really doesn't sit well with me, particularly when we know that there are so many possibilities that you can start working with patients on, even if you have to downscale it, still just giving in that sense of resilience and starting at the basic level, and then building on from there. So that's kind of where our conversation started, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's right. For me, cognitive functional therapy is I'm fairly new to that sort of idea, whether it's pain management, sort of being renamed after pain management or whatever.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was talking to Kieran Sullivan earlier on. We were sort of talking about the term self-management, the term pain management.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this another term? The thing is, if you went up to someone in the street and said, would you like to self-manage your pain? They'd go, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah. Would you like to learn pain management? What do you mean by that? Yeah. And I think some of these terms that we're using, that we're comfortable with, but the person, it's not street talk, as I call it. You know, people just don't understand. And I gave an example earlier with Kieran when I was at Liverpool a few years ago at the British Pain Society annual scientific meeting, and I was talking to a pain doc there about the term self-management. Do people actually understand it? Yeah. And there was a security dude there, and I've been talking to him about football and whatnot during the week, so I knew him a little bit. I said, hey, come over here, son. I said, if you had a back problem and you said, I suggested that you go and learn how to self-manage it, what would you do? He said, I'll go and see the GP. There's still, self-management isn't that concept with patients or people with pain, etc. So, if you said to someone you're going to learn some cognitive functional therapy, what the hell does that mean, sort of thing, But it's sort of another terminology. But saying that, could you just sort of give me an overview of what that actually means and what's the content of it?
Yeah, I can. So what it started with was that some of Pete's early work in his PhD was looking at how to make sense out of pain for this big group of non-specific low back pain. And that's another term that people are unfamiliar with. If you ask, how are your non-specific low back pain today, Mr. Smith? It's not really viable for something to say. So I think you're rightly in saying that all these words that we have for things, I think that's back to trying to be open and honest about communication, and then say what can we leave in there and what should we probably get out. And I want to point out another thing now that I can say it. I'm really so grateful and glad for the effort that you and Joletta Belton and Cheryl Lee are doing, because I really believe that we need the true experts in pain. Like, I'm fully aware that your pain is a unique experience, but we need you guys on that same board, because you can let us know all these things that about how the language we use and how we can confuse using certain language and so forth. So cognitive functional therapy was a way of trying to make a system of understanding. So if you break it down, and this is always difficult, it's like the biopsychosocial model. It's difficult to break down in its parts because it's interlinked. But if you look at the cognitive side of it, that's really where you're trying to see to what degree does the patient have a narrative or an understanding of what goes on. And that's back to the opening of the conversation. If they've been given this belief that they have a hip that's out of place, or they've been told that their back is looks like an 80-year-old on an MRI, and all these scary fear-mongering stories, I don't think people really understand how that ingrains into the system. I mean, you do understand it, but some of the therapists saying that doesn't understand what it does to the patient. So the cognitive side can have the beliefs around their condition. It can also be looking at more of the person. So it takes a person perspective. To what degree do they understand their values, their goals, their social situation, their stresses in life, and so forth. Mm-hmm. So there's a big majority now or a big lots of research showing how these psychological variables is very important in how we understand our patients. Mm-hmm. So that's one part of it, but that's also linking the person into function, because really it's all about getting people back to the things they love to do, right? And that hits home again with the same storyline. If you've been told, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, I mean, what kind of life do you have left then? If all the things you love is, so I, like some of the things you're doing, I have a back pain patients now where the goal of the exercise is to get him strong enough so he can balance his Harley. And I'm really saying it straight out. This is not squats for squatting, it's squats for being able to drive your Harley. Mm-hmm. So and I think that's where you're connecting with people, seeing the function is linked to the goals and the behaviors that they want to do. Yeah. So that's kind of where, and we really sat and had a lot of discussions and hard thinking about the terminology. So we wanted it to be something that people can understand. But then again, you can turn around and people say, oh, it's just talk therapy or whatever. They want to put their own spin to it, but it's far from that. So I'm very happy to say that cognitive functional therapy is a way of getting a collaboration so the self-management is possible. So I'm always saying my complete goal with you is to make you less dependent on me. So the more I can make you resilient, the more I can use that knowledge base that we can build up together, so you're not depending on me. That's when I know that I've done a good job. So it's why I like, because somebody was saying, I don't know if you saw it online the other day, Ben McCormack, which you know, I'm sure. Yeah. He had a great saying that he was asked, what's your success rate? And he said, it's 0, because it's not about me. It's about getting the patient to do. So the patient is the thing. And that's why it's not my success rate. It's the success rate of the patient. Mm. And of course, as you know, this is a tricky situation, because not all people have the capacity at a certain point to make those commitments to the changes maybe that is required. But that's okay as well. But we need to, I'm not saying that we should say, oh, so you don't have the skills or the means now, therefore such and such. But that's when we have to know when to be supportive and just be there with them through that journey.
I think we need those, I call them nudges.
Yeah.
Healthcare professional. I think what's, I mean, I remember back in the day where, I mean, this is 20 years ago, but the system was so geared up for keeping you stuck.
Yeah.
That if it wasn't for the pain management program that I got myself on, then I would be still stuck, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing and having that conversation. You know, you're sitting there having a conversation with you. And I remember I had to be assessed for driving a car, and I had to see this OT down in Surrey, and she said to me, "You won't be able to drive the manual anymore. You'll only be able to drive an automatic." Crap, I like driving the manual, you know, but no, because she was a healthcare professional, okay. So I had to go and you take them on their word. You don't know, do you? Because back in them sort of day, I didn't really see a lot of future for myself anyway. So you just go along. But the negative messages that I got from the healthcare professionals, I always remember the orthopod telling me you've got a crumbling spine. You've got a spine like a digestive biscuit. Yeah. You know, you're thinking, shit, I mean, I better be really careful. I better, you know, just support myself. And all I did, I stopped moving and I go outwards, you know, I've become overweight, etc. So I think it's moved on a bit. It has moved on from that sort of stuff. But what moved me on was getting on that the pain management program. And what the program did, the input program in London, was it gave me the tools, skills, but more importantly, the confidence to think, you know, I think I can do this, like, you know. Yeah. And that's what I say to when people come on the workshops, the pain toolkit workshops, even the healthcare professional ones, you know, I want people to go away from that workshop thinking, you know, I think I can do this. Yeah. I know a lot of healthcare professionals get stuck, and when I do the patient ones, you can see their faces though. People want to tell me that how stuck they are, and I say, look, I know how stuck you are, but what I'm really interested in about learning about you today is what's your battle plan? What do you want to get? What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to move on? And they just sort of, you can see, and they sit back a bit and they're thinking, bloody hell, I don't know. It's because they've been funneled into that very narrow medical model of care where they don't know what to do. Is, you know, everything. I can't do nothing without the say-so of the healthcare professional. And when I was reading the letter that Sarah posted, you know, I thought this is bloody nonsense. Like, you know, how the hell is this still going on? I mean, I mean, Kjartan, why is it why is it at the physio schools or medical schools? Why, you know, because why don't they get people, you know, the students to start thinking about having conversations with people? What's their action plans? And let's teach them problem-solving skills and stuff like that. Giving them a confidence. And as you say, it's not about your success, it's about our success of moving on, having a confidence to move on. I mean, why aren't the schools doing this?
I've been asking myself that question for a long time. I remember at the Pain Cloud this year, I was asked, what's your motivation? It's really, what's my motivation? It's to try and change like you. How do you get these? It's like an ecological change of the system, if you like, for therapists and the profession. And I've been thinking, why on earth do you need to tell a patient that they have a crumbling spine? It's like, it must be some form of whether it gives you some power to say it or whatever, I don't know, but it's just ridiculous. Like it's totally nonsense. So I've not figured out the actual why they still do it, but I think you're right that we've kind of given up on pain for one. So because I remember, and I've video filmed myself with patient, and it's very interesting to see how you want to provide answers, and the problem with that is that you tend to come in with solutions that the patient hasn't asked for. So I think, again, taking that step back to sip the one thing you have here and use the two ears is really a way forward, because by just doing that, you probably wouldn't prompt out with this ridiculous things that scares the shit out of people. So
someone said to me years ago, I was at a meeting once, and someone said to me, "Do you know your problem, Pete? You've got too much to say for yourself." He said, "What you want to do is take the cotton wool out of your ear rolls and shove it in your mouth and learn to listen." Great advice, man. I did it.
It's really hard, and I think that's why. One thing, I think filming yourself with patient, and even you didn't have to film the patient, just film yourself. And if it was, of course, it has to be okay with the patient, but just seeing how we tend to want to provide answers all the time is really bad. Like, there's no way you get
we learn nothing
of what the patient wants and what they need. But also, as you're pointing out, a lot of the time I find that you can be stuck if you're too focused on, or you ask patients, what do you really want out of this? And they, like you say, it's like they don't have a clue, because they've been so long into that stuck mode that it's really hard to get out of. So I think, I can't remember who did it, but it's like you've been given a new manuscript of your life that you never really wanted. And that's why it's called life on hold, or people feel that they're just standing outside their own life and just seeing it pass in a slow in front of them.
I think Jo Belton, I think in one of her, by the way, guys, if you don't know Jo Belton, she's from Denver in Colorado in the US, and she's on Twitter, My Cup of Joe.
My Cup of Joe. Yeah.
And she does great blogs. And I remember reading in her blog where I think it was Jo, where she said it's like your life goes in like a holding pattern, like an aeroplane, circling the airport.
Yep.
You know, and don't know when to land, sort of thing. You know, and as you're circling the airport, you're being given instructions, when to come down and do, to land, etc.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, I think. And when I read that, I thought, yeah, you're dead right. It's we're in that constant cycle of going nowhere. So, I mean, you have you ever been around the M25? You know the road that goes around. You know the road that goes around London.
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
They, you know what they call that road on a Friday night?
No.
They used to call it the car park.
Yeah.
But now they call it the road to enlightenment, because you're on it for so long, you've got time to reflect on your life. But it's like going around the M25, going around London, and you don't know when to get off, sort of thing, And we just get stuck. But why? I don't know why this medical model that healthcare professionals are trained in med schools, etc., why it seems to be treatment focused, and pain management or self-management seems to be. I remember asking a healthcare professional in Canada, I think last year, and I said, do they teach self-management, pain self-management in the med schools? And she said, no, it's something they, I think it's Kathy in Canada, a doctor over there. She said, no, it's something they learn on the job. And it's like me teaching you to drive, and then, it's sort of, it's like I always use the analogy of someone teaching someone to drive, but they never pass their test themselves. And it's because like it's never going to happen. But I've been using this analogy. I mean, in other life, I used to be a driving instructor, and you know, when people learn to drive, when you drive a car, when you learn to drive a car, where did you sit? In the passenger seat, the driving seat, or did you stand outside and watch the guy or the woman? You sat in the driving seat. Well, why did you sit in the driving seat? It's because you had to practice, etc. And you had the driving instructor was there to give you a bit of coaching along the way. And that's really, in a way, all we really ask the healthcare, you know, proper pain management is where they're there as a coach, giving us a bit of instruction if and when we need it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, and I really like another thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Carr in what's called Pain Week. Like I really like the flip that he put on so if you have the biopsychosocial model, it's always usually 90% bio, and then there's like 5-10% psycho, and then the rest, there's hardly anything on the social aspect. So his idea was that one of the reasons we should flip that around is to remind ourselves it's really trying to get patients back into the social part of what they love doing. It's getting them back to work or getting them back to the activities that they like doing with their friends or family and things. And I think that kind of flipping it around, saying it's a socio-psychobiological model, is another smart way of getting more therapists to actually start with the self-management or the things that will drive self-management, if you like. Because otherwise we'll always just be spending time on what's this bio, how can we see it, what tests can we do? And you're never getting out of that scenario. And nobody's saying that the bio doesn't matter, because it's still in the biopsychosocial model or the socio-psychobiological model. But it's just how you're weighing these different dimensions up to each other. And
when I do my workshops to both patients and healthcare professionals, the headings, self-management, your first choice or last result.
Yeah.
You know, because it's the same for both people with pain and also the healthcare professionals. It always seems to be, well, we tried everything else. You've got to start learning how to look after it yourself. Or what can't happen on day one, or at least a second appointment, you know.
But I think I've been teaching and I've been a big. I've been quite loud in Norway in terms of saying that the manual therapy profession or the musculoskeletal profession is to go forward. We need to change how we do the curriculum, because it's really about the patients and not about us. But I get a lot of pushback because they're saying, "Oh, we can't stop doing the hands-on stuff with our," and it's really so difficult to get people away from that mentality. And I truly believe this, that it's because they're really scared of their own identity if it's not about them anymore. If it's more about the patient than themselves, they lose that guru-like magic of themselves. So I think that's another thing that needs to be voiced out there, that we got to get over ourselves. Like we really need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, do I really want to keep making it about me, or am I now a grown-up and can actually make it about the patients, which is the main character in this play.
The thing is with this hands-on treatment-focused approach, if it was that fabulous, if it was that useful, then why are the numbers of people we're paying ain't going down? It's going up. And I mean, at the moment, currently in the UK, I don't know what it's like in Norway, but in the UK, they're quoting 28 million people we're paying. And, you know, back in 96 or something like that, they was only quoting like 7.8. And it just seems to be doubling every 4 or 5 years. So at the end of the day, no matter what, all these injections with all this medication, all this treatment stuff, hands-on and whatnot. Yeah. If it was that useful, I'm not saying that there isn't a place for it.
No, I understand.
But at the moment, it's everybody's being poked, injected with this, take that, and etc. As I did back in the day. Yeah. But at the end, all we really need is some basic, simple self-management skills. Get us on it. It's like learning to drive. I mean, you're not still taking drive lessons, are you? No, because you learned, you got to require standard, and off you went. And if something went bonkers or something like, you know, your instructor told you how to get yourself out of problems and whatnot. And that's good healthcare professional support, is that this is how to do it. Listen, if you get yourself into problems, this is what you need to do. I mean, a couple of years, last year I was over in Northern Ireland doing some workshops over there.
Yep.
And all I kept saying, when people said to me, yeah, but what happens if this happens? What happens? Well, I didn't answer them. I said, well, what does the group think?
Yeah.
And the group had the answers in already. Yeah. And then at the end of the workshop, I said to him, look, and here's my my contact details. If you get any problems, give me a, get in contact. And one woman said, well, what's the bloody point? And I said, what do you mean by that? She said, well, if we do contact, all you're going to say to us is, what do you think I need to do? and I thought to myself, they get it.
Yeah, they get it.
It's about putting people back in the driving seat, switching them back on again, that they have the confidence to know what happens when something goes a bit bonkers. A classic example, just quickly, for some reason I've got this thing about running again. Yeah. I started running down the gym last week. Yeah. And as usual, I'm an overachiever. I'm very competitive with myself. And I should have took it at a slower pace, but no, it was from 0 to, and I started feeling over some problems with all. But I didn't shoot down the doctors and say, oh my God, you know, or go on my back and take pills or whatever. I just started thinking through, right, hang on a minute, this ain't going. I've been overachiever here. I've done too much. Cut it right back, and then we'll go at it at a slower pace. So that's what I'm doing. So it's having that confidence to start doctoring myself, really, you know, talking a bit of self-therapy, I suppose, cognitive therapy, whatever you want to call it, working things out, cutting back and growing up again gradually, like, you know.
And I see that so many times. I think, almost like 9 out of 10 times, if people get exacerbation, it's usually quite a nice way if you go through with them what they've done, and they come up with like the solution to saying, yeah, I've probably gone from 0 to 150%, and within the time that the body isn't responding to. So I think, and this is where some of JP's work now from his PhD is looking into the intrinsic beliefs of how patients deal with pain. And what he sees with where they get this change is that people can get exacerbation, but they don't freak out anymore. And that's quite a big, and I know Joletta has been saying this as well. It's like, if you get an exacerbation, it's like every other dimension is starting at the race line. So your stress, your anxiety, all the other things is standing on the race or on the starting line. So it's how, again, to manage these situations where by building this knowledge and being there with them. And I've become much more comfortable with being uncertain as well. Like I'm just saying, I can't know exactly why this and this happen all the time, but I'm not leaving you. I'm here with you, and I'm here to discuss these plans with you. And I think you bang on the money with this. Like a lot of the times, people are now getting quite good at listening to patients. They're taking good stories and so forth. But they're still not providing that plan with the patient that has a strategic direction with what to do, what goals to achieve, how should we progress if such and such happen. And then I think it's easy to just roll back into the rhythm of the patients coming, and you end up in this temporary relief situation again. But I think also we need to acknowledge that it takes a lot of effort as well from both the patient and the practitioners. So it's kind of hard work. It is hard work. It's not kind of. It is really hard work, as you know. And we need to.
I did last week. I come up with this phrase that we need patients or people with pain. We need to have desert island thinking.
Sorry, what?
We need to have desert island thinking.
Island thinking, yeah.
Yeah, island. So it's my accent.
Yeah.
It's where if we were stuck on a desert island,
yeah,
what we'd have to think it through.
Yeah.
And we need to have it more of an approach where we do more desert island thinking. That, well, if I was on a desert island, what would I do?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then I think the idea of what you're alerting to, the problem-solving skills, I don't see that we really teach, or that's being put forward a lot in the curriculum anywhere. Mm-hmm. So and it's interesting because when I do workshop, I have a half a day of just communication. And it's a lot of the time I do like you. I say, now I want you to be a patient and you to be a therapist, and the two of you're just observing.
I like it. Yeah.
And what some of the feedback I'm getting is that people are saying, oh, this feels awkward. I don't know what to say. And then I'm thinking, so you're saying it's awkward to be tested on communication, but if I asked you to crack somebody's neck, you would do it in a heartbeat. Yeah. So it's this idea, I really feel that communication and how we approach other people is easy to look upon as a reflection of our intellect, if you like, and people, that scares people out. So I just can't see you can go to a pain management course today without communication and how you speak and how you get these things going. If that's not addressed, I really think it's not a viable course in 2018. And similarly, I've said this, and that's one of the reasons I think why the likes of you and Gilletta, if I'm not going to another pain conference, if there's not a patient advocate, I'm not going, because it's ridiculous. It's like you're saying, it's like having a conference for the one person that's really an expert and without inviting the expert. So that's another thing. And again, I'm really applauding the work that you're doing, and I know you can't go everywhere, but there should be a keynote speaker for a patient advocate for any conference there is, and that's as important as any research or that's been done.
Do you know what? It's very nice of you to say that. I know Joe and all the other pods like myself and Joe around the world, I guess, who do their bit. I know sometimes I feel like I'm a bit of a tick box. Well, we've got to involve the patient so they can tick a box.
Yeah.
But I really feel, I think the guys that like the pain-clad guys, yeah. I don't feel the reason why I agreed to come up there, because I didn't feel I was going to be a tick box part of the program. And I think the other one, the one that Jack Chew is organising in Manchester, I think, he's invited Joe along to that as well. So, listen, I think we're coming to the end now, but I'll get the final word with you, really, is to what would be to your colleagues now, if you were talking to one of your colleagues from physio land or healthcare professional land, what would be the take-home message you will give them to think about, not only after today, tomorrow, but what will they need to think about over the coming days and weeks, months, on how they can change to support the patient. What would be your take-home message?
So I think what I usually have, I usually put up these slides where I say, this is my take-home points, and I think that fits quite well. And I think the first thing we've kind of alerted to is you really need to try and really get to know the person, like seeing all the aspects of that person, because how are you going to help somebody if you don't know their values, their upbringing, what the family situation is like, where they want in life, and all that thing. So having that multi-dimensional narrative as understanding the person, I think is critically important. Number two, I think we really need to be more alert to it being the patient's story and not just a narrative that I want to fit into my narrative, but really trying to get the grips of how can I utilize peak listening more, be really good at letting the patient finishing their sentence and using reflective communication. The other part is the goal, the plan part. It has to revolve in a plan. If you've examined somebody and you have no plan, I really can't see a way forward with that patient. And lastly, but not leastly, always make sure that you as a clinician reflect back to the patient. So I do, it's been, some has coined it the Kieran O'Sullivan test, but asking the patients. So if you are going home to your spouse or friend or whatever and telling them today, how would you sort of frame that narrative of what you're talking about? And it's so important because it makes sure that you can take some of those beliefs. If they understood you said something and it wasn't what you meant, you can take it there and then and not let it be another fortnight or a month before you actually get to fix that. And last but not leastly, don't become another yellow flag. That's, I think, my last point. Don't scare the shit out of patients with ridiculous crumbling backs or all these kind of things. Focus on the do's and not on the no's. That would be my...
Kjartan, it's been a fantastic, I tell you what, a take-home message. And there's things I want to add to that, but I'm not going to do that because I'll leave that take-home thought.
Yeah,
listen, thanks for agreeing to. We've got to do another one of these. I think I'm sitting here now and thinking, I don't want to take up any more of this guy's time, but I'm sitting here thinking, crap, we got to do another one of these, you know, because I think there's so much. I know, I'm just thinking about it would be fun if we can get Joe on board as well, perhaps another healthcare bod and get Joe involved. We can do a bit of a quad interview and just a little bit of a discussion, really, you know. Because I think people here they like that sort of stuff, you know, and you know, a lot of people tell me that they like they get the information about watching the vids and whatnot.
Yeah. And if people want to go on PainEd as well, they can look at the website of PainEd. We try to the traffic there and we're quite approachable people, as I'm sure you've seen.
Oh yeah.
We're sort of in it for the same reason as you, trying to change the perception. So I'm really thankful that you invited me, and it's been a great pleasure to talk to you finally.
Listen, dude, we're going to do another one, so don't go far.
Take care.
So I wish you a nice evening, and I'm going to hit the stop button right now. Take care, dude.
Yeah, you too. Take care, dude. Bye-bye.